With the border walls of the Devil's Playground getting nearer with each step, the group is hesitantly surprised when the guards have had yet to appear to give them the common greeting that they show to ongoing travelers. Even Root, who is using its nose furiously, doesn't find any sort of danger presence coming from the poorly constructed sand prison walls. I've never been here before. Is it usually this spooky? Asked Sid. No, it's usually much worse than this, BC replies in a shush tone, not bothering to turn to look at Sid. Now face to face with the towering closed doorways, the team awaits unsure to press on. Something is definitely amiss here. I don't hear anything, Zen says, also trying to keep his voice down. I'm going to check it out and see just what is on the other side of this wall, Jace says to everyone. Trusting in his abilities, Jace jumps effortlessly to the top of the wall's edge to see just what is taking place on the other side, being aware to hide his presence to not endanger himself or the others. As he softly perches upon the top, he becomes stricken by the sight of what laid inside. All of the structures had been destroyed. Bodies and blood flooded the area like an ocean of red, and the smell of it crashed up at him like waves against a ledge. In the very center of all of the destruction and carnage was yet another machine turning and spinning gears and blades, with what was left of the lifeless bodies into itself before spewing the remains back out of its mouth, located upon its top. His mouth dropped, and Jace steps backward, forgetting his whereabouts and losing his balance, falling back down with a hard crash into the sand below. Sid jumps into a defensive stance as he is the only one able to catch the weight of Jace's falling body. Whoa, what happened up there? Are you alright? They all ask in surprise. Picking himself up off the ground, Jace shakes the sand off of him, but his memories remain focused on similar events. As an unconscious glaze comes over his face, Jace begins to relive his childhood memories, witnessing Broski tearing apart his own parents limb by limb. Oh no, Jace is starting to lose his hold over Broski, Zen says, knowing what a look like that means. Trying to snap Jace out of it, Zen begins to grab hold of him to shake him loose of its hold. Jace, you have to fight him, is all that Zen can get out before he is flung against the Devil Playground's wall. Crashing into the sandy earth, Zen watches as Jace grabs Sid's hand, which is holding his knife, and pushes him ever slowly towards his friend. Jace, what are you doing? Sid shouts, trying to back away from the blade. But before he knows it, he finds himself back in against the same wall as Zen was now propping himself upon. With a evil grin slowly beginning to cover over Jace's face, Sid is forced with his own hand to put the blade to his throat. You worthless joke of a soldier. I don't even need to kill you. You'll do more good to me alive than dead. If you were smart, you'd kill yourself and be done with it, Jace says, his eyes sharp and focused now. Here, let me get you started. As blood begins to run down his neck from Jace's push of the knife, Sid lifts his feet to Jace's chest as a last attempt to separate himself from his certain death. Pushing with all his might, Sid is surprised to be countered with extreme ease. With as much force as he gave to remove Jace from him, it is returned with a brutal pull down. Sid now laid motionless, his face buried into the ground, his arm twisted behind him, and his wielding hand still in Jace's grip. You're so pathetic. On second thought, I think I might just help you out after all, seeing how you can't even do it yourself. BC, who is now morphed in with Root again, stands helpless, unable to attack, as it would in turn become an attack on Sid as well. Please, Jace, think of what you're doing, Zen shouts, hoping to reach him to come back to his senses, but is to no effect as his eyes dart in his direction, looking even more sinister than before. A roaring howl enters the surrounding air as Root launches itself from BC's body and attempts to sink its teeth into Jace, but it only retreats after breaking them against Jace's iron skin. Ha 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 ha. Jace lets out, foolish pup, you're next. Knowing that if Jace is not stopped soon, he will kill his entire team, and Broski will have returned with no one to stop his evil reign. With a few teeth missing, Root darts between Jace and Zen, being sure to give its meanest snarl. What are you so afraid of, old man? Broski says, with a cocky smile, as terror fills Zen's face. BC now inching her way towards Jace with an outstretched hand, with the very same fear that incapacitated her moments ago. BC pushes forward. Jace, she barely whispers, trying to find the voice to back her courage. Are you in there? Her voice still shaking with what she believes is to bring the end to this nightmare. With her body still fighting the decision to approach him, she reaches out and to try to lay a hand on him, but an unseen force keeps her from making contact. No, don't, Jace. We need you, BC says urgently, and in a surge of desperation she begins pounding against him, but his clothing seems to just be as dense as his body. Fall to your knees, bitch. Your lord has come, says Broski, now releasing Sid's hand but taking the knife. BC collapses into tears as Broski starts to make his way towards Zen and Root barks to let out a few blasts of electricity towards him. Broski simply dodges the beams of light. Grabbing Root by the cuff of its neck, Jace snorts. Let's see just how fast you really are, you dumb mutt. Throwing Root as far away into the air, Broski proceeds to then make his way to the withered old man. With a quick spin of the knife, Broski informs Zen that he is about to die and begins to ever so slowly push the blade into his chest. Ha ha ha, it's good to see you again, Broski Boneyard cackles, who was still tied and left in the sand from a distance. Looks like this is the end of you all. Hee hee. He barks again, pleased with the outcome. The knife, now pushing hard against Zen's robes, slightly retracts, and he is able to catch his breath without the blade piercing into his body. Jace's eyes begin to shift back and forth, refocusing once again, and soon he begins to slowly remove the knife from Zen's body. Holy shit, Jace. What the hell did you see? Zen says after taking a deep breath of air. Oh man, what the hell just happened? Sid asks, stumbling over his words as he lifts his face out of the sand. As Sid staggers to his feet, he proceeds cautiously to Zen, his eyes fixed on Jace. Turning away from Zen and Sid in shame, Jace says, I'm so sorry, guys. I completely lost it. I'm not worthy of being a leader to anyone. With Root returning from the distance at lightning speed, it halts at the sight of Jace now moving away from the group. A bit puzzled, Root hesitantly makes its way over to BC, who is laying quietly still in a slumped position. Giving her a few licks on the cheek, Root stops and shakes its head, pained by its broken teeth. Looking over at Zen, it begins to bark and whine as if to say, help me, Zen. Sorry, fella, I can't help you unless we go back up to High Peak Mountain. Zen replies, walking over to Root and patting it on the head with his old wrinkled hands. Take him then, and take BC and Sid with you as well. I got a feeling you'll need their protection more than I will, Jace states, now staring off into the sand-covered horizon. Without waiting for a reply, Jace buries his foot deep in the sand and jets away from the group, not giving them a chance, giving them a choice to in the matter. No, BC whispers, meekly raising her head in response. As the four of them watch in shock, having Jace completely up and leave like that, they recover themselves and Zen locates the direction in which his home is located. What are you going to do with Boneyard? What are we going to do with Boneyard? Sid asks as Zen begins to make the long trek towards home. Oh, Zen replies, having forgotten their caught foe. Tie him to these walls, and we will come back for him after we tend to Root. I'd take him with us, but he might lead other followers to us if we do. After planting a knife into one of the four corners of the Devil's Playground walls, Sid pulls out some rope he had before the journey. Having Boneyard tightly wound up and hung on the embedded knife, the team heads back to the lonely mountain peak. Wow, I can't believe Jace just did that. He totally flipped a switch back there, Sid says, starting in on what had just gone down. Yes, Jace seems to have seen something that he was not ready for. As disturbing as it is to consider, he may still be battling Broski's control and wanted to distance himself from us in case he isn't able to maintain his own consciousness. What I'm wondering is, what did he see? Zen replies, taking a look back at the Devil's Playground, which walls still tower high to see into, too high to see into. For the first time, noticing BC, who is following behind them quietly, Zen speaks up again. BC, are you all right? Not saying anything back, BC shakes her head yes before continuing to cross her arms and mope to herself. You shouldn't worry about it that much, BC. As he even even as he was Broski, you were the last person on his mind. If you think about it, that means you were the last person he would want to hurt. Zen says before turning his sight back on the mountain. Yeah, don't sweat it. It's not like he pulled your arm out of its socket, Sid proclaims before rotating his sore shoulder. BC looks back to the horizon where they watched Jace run off into and can't help but hope to see him return. Soon they had made it over the first rising hump within the sand dune hills. And as the last sight of the Devil's Playground began to sink in within the hill's edge, BC can see Jace returning with a furious crash against the boarded up doorway, taking out most of the entire wall with the entrance. As clumps of sand and splintering wood rain down upon them, BC realizes that she is walking the same path as before when she had been blinded by one of the doormasters as a child. Looking over at Sid and Zen, who seemed to have jumped almost out of their skin by the loud crash. What on earth was that? One of them shouts. It's nothing. We need to keep moving, she says, reclaiming her sense of purpose. The last of the shrapnel falls around them, and BC knows that if Jason is willing to face his fears and attack his demons head on, then so can she. But Sid begins to argue. I said move, damn it, trust me, BC says with grit. Meanwhile, Jace takes explosive steps, removing himself even further away from the doors of the Devil's Playground. As the feeling of Broski dissipates from his mind with each leap and bound he takes across the plains of the desert, Jace swings his fists against themselves. Ugh, how could I have let myself fall into Broski's control? Was this one of their plans the entire time? Or am I just as weak as I always have been? Jace says, now sliding through the shifting sands to eventually come to a halt. Looking back at the doorway of the Devil's Playground. Looking back, the doorway of the Devil's Playground can no longer be seen on the horizon, and Jace stands knowing that whatever it may be that is taking place inside of it, that it must be destroyed before it is able to carry out any further future plans. If I'm not careful, this place will have my neck, Jace thinks to himself. I have to dispose of it as fast as I can. As he stares off into the distance, he notices a speck upon one of the rising hilltops. It was BC staring back in his direction. This one's for you, BC. Don't let yourself get into trouble, Jace whispers under his now cloaked, covered face. I will put an end to this nightmare once and for all, Jace says, now trotting back towards the Devil's Playground, with each step giving him more speed. Jace races back with such immense might that the air around him screams as it gets out of the way of the sand, and the sand separates before his path. As the barricaded door shatters against his generated force of motion, he is surprised to find himself crashing further into the buildings within the city. Now inside, the blood-flooded streets poured out of the demolished wall. Jace is left standing covered in blood among thousands of dead bodies, all brutally murdered by the meat grinding machine, and in some cases tortured beyond belief. Knowing that he was the reason that this had happened, he lets out a ravenish howl, unwilling to limit himself. Get the fuck out here now! His voice booms, and somehow he can feel that his comrades are aware of what is happening. With the wall destroyed and dead bodies littering the ground among the rubble, Jace can hear Boneyard arguing to free himself from Sid's binds. Motherfucker knots. Stupid losers think they know anything, Boneyard says, scowling as he wiggles around like a spider's prey. Grabbing him from the wall, Jace orders Boneyard to cooperate. Listen here, you awful scum-sucking sack. You're going to show me where the entrance is under this place, or I am going to make you wish you had. Boneyard chuckles in response. You know all too well that we are too many steps ahead of you, broski, and that there is no hidden entrance under this city. Jace stares at the little man for a second before pulling out his eyeballs. Gah! You miserable cuss! Boneyard screams in agony before spitting from his yellow-toothed mouth. Where are your friends hiding? How might I find them? Jace says, tearing away the rope and grabbing onto Boneyard's arm. If you do not talk, I will break all your bones in your body. Boneyard tries his best not to show pain, but his presently breaking elbow is too much, and he finally gives into Jace's demands. Okay, I give. I'll tell you whatever you want to know, he squeals, his elbow already hyperextended. I'll show you the way, he whimpers, and Jace grabs him roughly by the scuff of the collar. Point! As Boneyard lifts his arm in shaking, it shakes with pain. It's over there inside that building that is still standing. Among the wreckage, there is a trapdoor inside that will have a tunnel that will lead you to one of the masterminds behind all of the destruction that has taken place here. Thanks for all your help, Boneyard. Jace replies with grit teeth and picks him up only to throw him straight into the earth. The bloody sand oozes back over him, and his mangled, crushed body becomes buried among the limbs and debris. The boom of Boneyard's burial cracks the air before nothing is heard once more besides the turning of the meat grinder. Jace, now eager to uncover and stop one of the followers of Broski, trudges through the thick blood goo, all ready to take his revenge upon his own self. Approaching the sand-made building, Jace gives a mighty horizontal slice with his arm, creating a massive cut across it at shoulder height. The wind begins to howl, giving a hint of other smells besides death. Jace removes the top of the building, tossing it to crumble with the rest of the destroyed playground. As Jace climbs inside of the beheaded building, he stares at a blank floor with not even a spot of blood besides his own footprints. He starts to laugh at it to himself. With a new rhyme of insanity beginning to overpower him, Jace throws a hard jab to the ground only to find more sand and no sign of Broski's predecessors. Good God, what the fuck? He says, now blasting more holes into the sand, trying to find any kind of tunnel that he is only left with nothing but disappointment. But he's only left with nothing but disappointment. Now laying among the holes, Jace stares up into the sky, and as his breathing begins to become heavier, and his eyes start to fill with tears, he does all he can from breaking his own throat as a mean to suffocate himself. In desperation, he quickly crawls out of the blood-dry cavity of a building to where he had left Boneyard's body, and begins to dig him out, hoping he might still have a spark of life in him. But unfortunately, what he finds is nothing more than a crushed body of bones and guts. Mind still racing with thoughts of Broski's lurching over him, watching his every next move. Jace shakes his head, trying to block out many of the thoughts as he can before taking off his cloak and scooping up Boneyard's remains into it before tying it tightly shut, hoping that Zen will be able to bring him back the same way as Sid somehow. Jace jumps over the devil's wall, unable to help but wonder why the entire devil's playground had been massacred, and if there were others as sweet as BC inside of it before Broski had its way with it. Hoping to regroup with everyone to figure out a better strategy to take on this massive enemy, Jace moves as quickly as possible back to Zen's house. The group had only gotten over the second hill by this time Jace had caught up with them, and as he lands yards away, everyone arms themselves, fearing the worst. Zen, we got a problem here, Jace shouts as he opens the cloak to show the remains of Boneyard as bits and pieces drool out of the finely meshed cloak's opening. BC starts vomiting, and Sid holds his nose away from the smell. Oh man, what in the world is that? What do you mean? It's Boneyard. Zen, can you bring him back? You can bring him back, can't you? He died somehow, and we still need him for information. Jay says, trying not to say too much. I'm afraid that Boneyard is too far gone to do anything to help. Zen replies, eyeing Jace, who was completely covered in blood. What happened in there? Jace goes quiet for a moment before replying back, everyone is dead. There is an enormous spinning machine inside that was breaking apart the sand building, all while continuously sucking in the inhabitants, only to spew them out in pieces. Boneyard tricked me into killing him before I could get any information out of him. And what about the machine? Did you dismantle it? Sid says, trying to talk through his pinched nose. No, I wasn't able to hold my ground without feeling like Broski would have taken me over again, Jace states, feeling a bit worthless and retying up the cloak containing Boneyard. BC, able to stomach her surroundings, wipes off the chunks before adding to the conversation, hey, what if there is a follower inside the machine? Shouldn't we go back there and blow the hell out of that damn thing? Zen, now turning his attention to BC, impressed with her perception to the art of war, begins to eye her slyly. That's pretty smart, BC, but I don't think any of us, including Root, are up for taking on a follower right now. I think it's better if we try to recover as fast as possible before we try to attack anyone. Let's keep moving, everyone. As Jace walks beside the group, holding the contained mangled dead body, everyone keeps peeking over at him, trying to piece together what had just happened in the Devil's Playground that would have set him off so fast to make him almost lose complete control over himself. Root was still whining periodically as its broken teeth clunked against themselves, and Jace couldn't help but try to give it some loving pats, only to have Root move farther away every time Jace would try to reach out to do so. Sid and Zen mumble between each other, trying to find the proper words to strike up a conversation with him. As the group make their way into the mountain, Jace couldn't help but keep looking over at BC and trying to find the words that he needed to explain what he saw. And as they begin to ascend up into the forest, it isn't long before BC speaks up and says, "Is there more of what's in the bag back at the DP?" Still focusing on her foot placement in the mountain. "Yes," replies Jace, not sure of the reaction that would follow. "Good, at least they will be out of their misery," she states as the group enter through the opening into Zen's camp yard. "I'll get a fire going, guys," says Sid in an eager but shaken tone. "I'm going to help Zen with Root," replies BC. "I'll just stay here," announces Jace, now deserted as everyone jets off in their own direction. He sets the tied up cloak down and draws scribbles in the ash of the dead fire with a burnt stick, his head low and his mind heavy on the actions that had taken place just moments ago.